Yo, what's up guys, welcome to my humble YouTube channel where I bring you fanfiction that will brighten your days. Before we start, a subscribe is greatly appreciated, and don't forget to leave a like and ring the bell icon so you won't miss exciting new fanfiction stories. Two Gods Summoned to a Fantasy World by BenGrem1234. Chapter 9. Love between two gods. Rimuru, Chloe, Kanade, Yoshino and the little girl that Kanade saved were traveling through the forest that would lead them to the vampire's kingdom. After the incident of the burning town, the little girl who Kanade saved woke up and began to panic in fright from seeing so many new people, but after she saw Chloe, she became very clingy and attached to her and always calls her mama. Rimuru couldn't stop laughing from seeing Chloe's face after the little girl called her mama. Chloe tried to tell her that she was not her mother, but seeing the little girl on the brink of tears, made her to accept it and became a mom to the little girl. Chloe asked the little girl what her name is and she told her that it was Sophia. Chloe then used her powers to make a dress for Sophia which she happily wore. Rimuru and the others could not believe how cute Sophia was. Everyone began to dote on her, which caused Yoshino to become jealous. Yoshino went and clinged to Rimuru and began to call him Papa, which caused Chloe to be the one laughing at him, with Rimuru blushing from embarrassment. After that, they all resumed their journey to the vampire's kingdom. Currently, Rimuru and Chloe along with Yoshino and Sophia were sitting down on a tree branch while watching Kanade fending off against dire wolves packs that came to attack them. Dire wolf in this world are similar to those of Rimuru and Chloe's world, but what differentiate between the two is that dire wolf from this world can't speak while those from Rimuru's original world can talk. The dire wolves from this world are simply like wild wolves that hunt anything that looks eatable. At the moment, a total of 50 dire wolves were facing Kanade in a fight. Kanade could have ended the fight with a single spell, but Rimuru asked her to put on a show for the two children with them. So because of that, Kanade watched the wolves that surrounded her with a calm look. The dire wolves roared and began to rush her with their mouth open ready to bite her, but they all bit an invisible barrier that surrounded Kanade. Kanade flew up immediately and raised her staff in the air, which caused multiple ice spears to appear in the sky. She sent the ice spears at the helpless dire wolves, who could do nothing but watch as the spears pierced them without mercy. Up to 23 wolves died from that, while the rest were gravely wounded. Kanade clicked her fingers and multiple fireball appeared in the air, which she sent at the dying dire wolves. A huge explosion occurred where the wolves were lying after the fireballs made contact with them. Kanade then pointed her staff, and the earth where the dead bodies of the dire wolves were lying began to rise in the air. As the earth with the dire wolves rose to the air, Kanade pointed at it with her staff. Her staff then released a massive lightning that looked like white laser, which fired at the earth with the dire wolves and destroyed it without a trace. Kanade breathed a sigh of relief after she was done. She flew back to where Rimuru and the others were seating. She landed in front of them and smiled. "How did I do, master?" Rimuru stood up and lightly knocked her on the head with his hand. Kanade held her head in pain and looked at Rimuru with small tear in her eyes. "What was that for, master?" "That was for going overboard with your powers. I've told you to learn to control yourself and your urge to show off your new powers. I simply just told you to show off a little to the children, not to go and destroy the half of the forest in the process." Rimuru scolded her. Kanade pouted and turned her face away from Rimuru. "I didn't do anything wrong." Multiple veins appeared on Rimuru's head. He grabbed Kanade's face and forced her to face the forest. "Oh, you didn't, huh? Then who's gonna take the blame for this, you reckless child?" Kanade looked and saw that the forest was completely destroyed. Multiple ice spears scattered everywhere, along with multiple trees and grasses that were turned to ash. The ground were also destroyed. It looked like an earthquake happened inside the forest with how chaotic it looked. Kanade's sweat dropped after seeing her handiwork. She turned her head to face Rimuru. "I'm sorry, master, for going overboard." Rimuru sighed and released her face. "Honestly, try to control your powers a bit more. You can destroy a country if you are not careful with your powers, you know." Kanade bowed her head in shame for failing her master. Chloe stood up and walked up to Rimuru while carrying Sophia in her hands. Now, no need for all this scolding, Rimuru. Give her a break a little. It is her first time using her powers with no restraint, you know," Chloe told him. Rimuru scratched his hair. "Well, I guess you were right." Chloe smiled. "Now then, time to fix this forest." She clicked her fingers and the forest began to return to the way it was. It took only a few seconds, but the forest was good as new. Kanade looked at Chloe in admiration. No matter how many times I see it, this kind of power is way top. Chloe laughed at that. As it should be. I am a god, you know. Sophia looked at Chloe. Mama. What does being a god mean? She asked, tilting her head in a cute way. Chloe smiled at the little girl in her arms. Well, being a god means that you are very strong. Really? Then I want to be a god too? Sophia said in childish excitement. Chloe laughed and began to rub Sophia's face against her own. You are my precious cute little angel, Sophia, and never forget that. Yoshino, who saw how much love Sophia was getting, began to pout. She stood up and walked to Rimuru and shook his clothes to get his attention. Rimuru turned and saw Yoshino looking at him with a pout. He smiled and picked her up and placed her in his arms. Were you lonely after seeing Sophia being hugged? Rimuru asked her with a smile. Yoshino turned her face away from Rimuru. It's not like I wanted you to pick me up or anything, she said with a blush in her cheeks. Oh my cute little Tsunere is pouting. I guess she doesn't need my hug, Rimuru said with fake hurt. Yoshino immediately turned around in panic. Well, if why you want to hug me that bad, then I will allow it. Rimuru laughed as he hugged her, which she happily returned. Yoshino smiled in content during the hug. I love you, Papa. I love you too, sweetheart, Rimuru told her while still hugging her. Kanade looked at the family bonding everyone was having without her. I feel like such a third wheel right now. Even though she said that, she still smiled as she watched how happy everyone was during the hugging session. At night, Kanade set up tents for herself and the children. Rimuru and Chloe told her that they didn't need to sleep and would just keep watch. So Kanade went into her tent to sleep along with Yoshino and Sophia. Rimuru and Chloe were sitting next to each other while looking at the stars. I wonder how things are back in Tempest, Chloe said to Rimuru. Everything is still the same as always. Nothing really has changed since we were summoned here. Though, time is faster there than here, Rimuru told her. I can tell. It's been a month since we came to this world, but it has been 4 months back in our world. I wonder how the Kenya, Ryota, Alice and Gale doing, Chloe said. They are all fine. Trust me, those guys don't know the meaning of the word danger, Rimuru told her. Chloe laughed after hearing that. I guess that's true. Rimuru saw Chloe laughing as the moonlight shined on her, making her one of the most beautiful goddess he has ever laid his eyes on. Chloe, there is something I want to discuss with you, Rimuru said to her in a serious voice. Chloe turned and saw Rimuru with a serious look, which made her to stop laughing. What is it, Rimuru? Rimuru took a deep breath and released it before he began to speak. Chloe, I would like to adopt Yoshino and Sophia as my real children. Chloe looked at Rimuru in surprise. That's a little bit sudden, don't you think? What brought this on? I just can't see myself abandoning those children and with them seeing us as their parents. I figured I would make it official, you know, Rimuru explained to her. But they see me as their mother. What do you plan to do about that? Chloe asked him. Rimuru smiled at her. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. I would like you to be their mother for real. Chloe's face turned red in surprise. What do you mean? What I'm saying is, I would like for you to be my wife as we raise this children together. I know humans have the custom of wedding before this stage, but we are basically gods and have endless lives. So that concept means nothing to us. What do you say, Chloe? Rimuru asked her. Chloe looked at Rimuru for a few minutes to know whether he was pranking her. When she saw how dead serious he was on this, she smiled and moved her face closer to his as she kissed him deeply. Rimuru was surprised by the unexpected kiss, but he kissed her back just as deeply. They kissed for a few minutes before they separated and looked at each other. Is that a yes? Rimuru asked. Of course, you dummy, Chloe said as she kissed him again. This time, the kiss turned hot and passionate as both of them were using their tongue to dominate each other's mouth while releasing all their pent-up urges. They kept kissing for a while before Chloe separated from Rimuru and looked up to the sky. She saw the space distort at one spot in the sky. She immediately stretched out her hand and her sword materialized in her hand as she stood up and faced the distortion in the sky. All of a sudden, a huge slash came out of the distortion and approached Chloe at an incredible speed. The slash was invisible to any being, but to a god like Chloe, it was as visible as can be. Chloe raised her sword, which started to glow a bright color. She brought it down her sword and used it to deflect the approaching slash, which erased once it made contact with her sword. Once the slash has disappeared, Chloe turned back to distortion in the sky, which was closing after the slash went through it. She expanded her universal senses to focus on the distortion. Once she did that, she was able to expand her senses through space and time to track down the origin of that slash. Her senses led her to the inside of a giant castle. She expanded it more and it led her to a young girl of about 19 years seating in a throne made of gold. The girl appeared to be watching her through the space distortion, which proved to her that she was no ordinary girl. Chloe saw the girl's teeth and immediately knew who she was. "I will be coming for you shortly. Wait for me, we will settle this score then," Chloe said as the distortion vanished. Chloe sighed as she sat down and made her sword to disappear. She turned to Rimuru, who was smiling at her. "What?" Chloe asked him. "Seems you've got yourself a rival in this world. I didn't think the Queen of Vampires would make the first move though," Rimuru said to her. Chloe looked back up to the sky where the distortion was before it disappeared. She was very strong. "I felt it when I cut through that slash just now. It was no exaggeration when you said she was as strong as me. I wonder who would win between us." Rimuru smiled at her. "I don't know. I'm preventing myself from having any spoilers in this world, so I'm clueless on who would win between you two." Chloe laughed at that. "I forgot you came to this world to have a fun adventure. And I'm having it by saving humanity as its hero. I even got 2 daughters in this world and I finally got together with you. I'd say this trip was a success in my opinion," Rimuru told her. Chloe scooted closer to Rimuru and placed her head on his shoulder. "I'm glad we are together now." Rimuru placed his hand on her waist and brought her closer to himself. "Me too, Chloe, me too." And the two enjoyed each other's company throughout the night till morning came, when they, along with Kanade, Yoshino and Sophia, had to resume their journey to the Vampire Kingdom.